What if your destiny was stolen before you even knew it existed? What if the fate of a kingdom depended on one child you've never met? In the kingdom of Azura, two royal brothers stood at the edge of fate. Adawuni, the eldest, was strong, bold, and commanding. He had trained for the throne all his life, wielding his sword with precision and confidence. His younger brother, Adawuni, gentle and thoughtful, was loved by the people for his kindness and humility. During the season of the Great Gathering, when elders and seers spoke to the ancestors, a hush fell over the kingdom. The high seer, draped in flowing red and gold robes, called upon the spirits and declared, "The crown of Azura shall not go to the firstborn, but to the one with the heart of peace. The throne shall belong to Adawuni." Gasps echoed through the palace. Adawuni's jaw clenched, rage churned in his chest. How could this gentle, soft, spoken brother be chosen over him? King Aridio bowed to the divine will, but behind the smiles, a seed of jealousy had taken root. Adawuni's mind brewed dark thoughts that night. What if Adawuni never survives? The idea festered, and from that night forward, Adawuni began plotting, not only to claim the throne, but to erase his brother from history. Imagine the palace alive with music and celebration, while shadows of betrayal creep through its halls. Weeks later, the royal convoy set off to the neighboring kingdom of Orurul for the Festival of Unity, a tradition meant to strengthen alliances. Adawuni was to be formally introduced as the next heir of Azura. Elephants draped in royal fabrics marched through the streets, trumpeters played, and villagers cheered. But danger lurked unseen. Adawuni had secretly contacted a group of ruthless outlaws. No survivors, he instructed coldly. Arrows would fly, swords would clash, and a tiny cry in the forest would change everything. As dusk fell, the convoy entered a dense forest. Suddenly, masked attackers leapt from the shadows. Chaos erupted. The royal family was thrown into terror. Adawuni fought desperately to protect his wife and infant daughter. Sewa clutched their child tightly, but they were outnumbered. "Run, save her," he shouted. With bloodied hands and bruised body, Adawuni broke through, dragging his family into the darkness of the forest. They didn't know where they were going, only that survival was the only choice. Eventually, they found a deep pit, a forgotten trap of the forest. With a heavy heart, they lowered the baby into it, hoping the wilderness would hide her from death. The attackers searched frantically, but found nothing. The forest would take her in its arms, unbeknownst to all. As dawn broke, the cries of the tiny princess echoed softly through the trees. A skilled hunter named Akon, known for his loyalty and bravery, stumbled upon the pit while returning from the great lion hunt. Bloodied but triumphant, he heard a faint cry. Following it, he discovered the princess wrapped in royal cloth, her eyes wide with life. "This child. She is no ordinary child," Akon murmured. He carried her back to Orurul, where elders recognized the royal seal and declared her a princess, naming her Adawuni, "The crown has found me." From that day, the baby princess grew under Akon's care, protected and loved. Though she was hidden from death, destiny whispered that she was born for more. Little did she know. Her journey was only beginning. What if survival was only the beginning? What if the true test of destiny awaited far beyond the forest? Years passed, and Adawuni grew beneath the loving care of King Akon and Queen Eritiola. Though she wore no crown, the princess carried herself with quiet strength and curiosity. She learned to hunt, to listen, to think, and to fight. Skills her royal bloodline demanded, even if she didn't yet know it. Yet despite the love that surrounded her, a strange emptiness lingered in her heart. Sometimes she would stare at the stars and ask herself, "Who am I really?" Meanwhile, in Azura, King Adawuni's rule had turned the once beautiful kingdom into a realm of fear. Streets that once rang with laughter now echoed with cries of hunger and despair. Adawuni's 9 daughters, raised in opulence and spoiled beyond measure, walked like peacocks through the palace, arrogant and cruel. "The throne should belong to me," Iota shouted. "No to me," Amabulagi boasted. Their rivalry grew as Adawuni's health declined, leaving the kingdom restless and leaderless. Far away, Adawuni's connection to her destiny began to stir. One day, while wandering deep into the forest, she stumbled upon a familiar pit, oftened by time, yet echoing memories she could not fully recall. She sat for hours, visions of her past flashing before her eyes, the cries of her mother, the clash of swords, and the warmth of the forest that had saved her. Her heart trembled. This place. I have been here before, she whispered. Returning home, she confronted King Akon, Baba, who left me there. With a deep sigh, the king revealed her truth. Adawuni's real family was from Azura. She was born under stars of destiny, meant to reclaim what was lost. The revelation ignited a fire in her heart. She was a princess, and one day she would return. But destiny is never simple. Adawuni's journey back to Azura would be filled with danger, trials, and challenges that would test her strength, wisdom, and courage. She had survived the forest, but could she survive the world that had once sought her death? Imagine returning to a kingdom ruled by cruelty, where the people fear their own ruler, and every shadow could hide a threat. King Akon prepared her for the journey, teaching her not just to fight, but to lead. She practiced swordplay, archery, and diplomacy, learning the ways of governance and strategy. Every lesson, every fall, every success molded her into the leader she was destined to become. As she grew into a young woman, Adawuni's spirit became unstoppable. Tales of her bravery and wisdom reached nearby villages, inspiring hope in hearts that had long forgotten it. And somewhere in the distant palace of Azura, Adawuni's daughters continued their games of arrogance and entitlement, unaware that a true princess, born to restore justice and peace, was about to return. The crown may have been lost, but the soul of Azura has never forgotten it. Whispered the wind through the trees, carrying the promise of destiny. What if every step you take could change the fate of a kingdom? What if courage alone was not enough? Adawuni's journey back to Azura began at dawn. The sun rose like molten gold over the distant hills, and the forest seemed to whisper encouragement. Every tree, every rustling leaf reminded her of the night she had been abandoned, and the strength that had carried her since. Traveling alone was not easy. She faced wild beasts, treacherous rivers, and hidden traps left behind by those who had sought her death. Yet with every challenge, she grew stronger, more determined, and wiser. The forest had trained her, but the world awaited the true test. Meanwhile, in Azura, King Adawuni's daughters continued their reckless lives. They threw lavish parties while the common folk suffered. Their laughter echoed like cruel music through empty streets. But a quiet unease lingered in the air, an instinct that told the palace something was coming. When Adawuni finally crossed the border of Azura, she saw the kingdom with fresh eyes. Once a land of beauty and laughter, now marked by fear and despair. Villagers whispered of a mysterious girl from the forest, whose presence felt like hope. Could this be the lost princess they had heard about in stories? Adawuni moved carefully, observing without revealing herself. She studied Adawuni's daughters and their arrogance, noting how unprepared they were to lead. This would not be easy, she thought. The throne could not be claimed by strength alone. Her first step was to gain allies. She sought the wisdom of elders who had served her father, the courage of warriors loyal to justice, and the hearts of commoners longing for a leader who cared. Slowly, whispers of Adawuni's return began to spread, and hope flickered like a candle in the dark. The first challenge awaited her, a secret trial to test the minds of those claiming the throne. Adawuni's daughters had no understanding of the hardships faced by the people. They argued, demanded, and boasted. Adawuni, however, listened, observed, and acted with compassion. Leadership is not given, it is earned. She reminded herself silently. The tension grew. Each day she gathered knowledge, practiced her skills, and prepared for the inevitable confrontation. Adawuni's daughters mocked her behind closed doors, unaware that the true princess was learning, growing, and preparing for the day she would reclaim her destiny. And then the whispers became louder. A girl from the forest has returned. The lost princess has come home. Adawuni's heart raced, not with fear, but with purpose. The road ahead was long, and the kingdom's future rested on her courage, wisdom, and the ability to unite those who had once been divided. Every step she took echoed through history. Every choice could change lives. Every heartbeat was a promise. The lost princess would rise. What if the past you never knew returns to challenge the present you've built? Could a forest girl really claim a crown that was stolen? Adawuni approached the gates of Azura under the cover of twilight. The palace loomed ahead, grand yet ominous, its shadows stretching like fingers across the cobbled streets. The air was thick with whispers, of fear, of anticipation, and of secrets long buried in arrogance. Yet even in their world of wealth, a tension pulsed beneath the surface. Something was coming, something they could not control. Adawuni moved quietly, avoiding notice. She met with trusted elders, loyal warriors, and commoners whose hearts longed for justice. She shared no words of threat, only strategy and patience. Every encounter strengthened her resolve. Every story she heard reminded her why she had to succeed. The royal games were announced, a tradition that would determine the kingdom's next ruler. The challenge would test courage, wisdom, strength, and heart. Adui's daughters laughed at the thought of a commoner participating. "She will fail," they sneered. "She doesn't know palace life, rules, or protocol." But Adawuni knew better. She had survived the forest, escaped death, and grown into a leader in her own right. Her mind was sharp, her instincts honed, and her heart ready. "This is not just a game," she thought. "It is destiny calling." The first trial was the test of fire, designed to confront inner fears. Flames roared, illusions of darkness danced, and shadows tried to pull competitors into despair. One by one, Adui's daughters faltered, succumbing to pride and panic. Adawuni stepped forward, calm, focused, fearless. Memories of the forest, of survival, and of loss filled her mind. Each step was deliberate, each breath steady. The illusions of fear bowed before her courage. She emerged unscathed, a silent declaration that she was no ordinary contender. Next came the test of grace, where wisdom and diplomacy were key. Two feuding villages presented their conflicts to the competitors. Adui's daughters offered arrogance and shallow solutions, favoring wealth over justice. Adawuni listened. She understood. She guided the villagers to see each other's perspective, teaching empathy through action. The crowd gasped, elders nodded, and the daughters' faces burned with humiliation. A forest girl could outshine them, they whispered in disbelief. The test of survival followed, pushing competitors deep into Azura's wilds. Maps, knives, and instincts alone would guide them back. The daughters cried, stumbled, and failed, unprepared for nature's unforgiving trials. Adawuni thrived, her training in the forest transforming fear into mastery. She returned with provisions, knowledge of terrain, and a calm confidence that awed all. Finally, the test of truth awaited. A locked box, a scroll, and a riddle awaited each participant. Adui's daughters struggled, forcing, twisting, breaking nothing but their patience. Adawuni closed her eyes, whispering the truth of her life, her lineage, and her destiny. The box clicked open, revealing her father's emblem and a tiny crown, the final proof that she alone could claim the throne. The arena erupted, the elders raised their hands, the lost princess has returned, the crowd chanted, the city held its breath, and the path to the throne lay clear, yet fraught with challenges still unseen. Every glance, every whisper, every heartbeat now carried the weight of destiny. The forest had trained her, but Azura would test her beyond imagination. What would you do if every shadow in the palace was a threat, and every smile hid betrayal? With the royal games concluded, Adawuni's path to the throne was no longer a secret. Yet the palace was a web of intrigue. Adui's daughters seethed with resentment, their mockery turning into schemes. Every corner whispered plots, and even trusted allies looked cautiously around, unsure of what would come next. Adawuni walked the palace halls with quiet confidence. She didn't need jewels or a crown to command attention. Her presence alone radiated authority. Servants stopped to watch her pass, villagers peered from balconies, and even Adui's daughters felt the sting of recognition that this girl, once thought powerless, now carried the weight of destiny. The first confrontation came during a council meeting. Adui's eldest daughter, Iota, strutted forward. "Who is she to claim the throne? She knows nothing of royal law," she hissed. Adawuni's eyes met hers. Calm, steady. "It is not knowledge of law alone that makes a ruler, but the wisdom to serve your people," she replied. Her words hung in the air, a silent challenge that echoed through the marble halls. The elders nodded, impressed. Even the Queen Mother, who had observed from shadows, felt a spark of pride. The first seeds of respect, however reluctant, were being sown. Days turned into weeks. Adawuni implemented changes that seemed small but carried immense impact. She resolved disputes fairly, balanced resources between villages, and listened more than she spoke. People began to rally behind her, seeing not just a princess, but a leader whose heart matched her courage. Meanwhile, Adui's daughters plotted. Secret meetings in shadowed corridors, alliances with greedy merchants, even whispers to foreign powers. They would not allow this forest girl to overshadow them, but each plan faltered. Adawuni anticipated, adapted, and turned threats into lessons for those around her. Then came the moment that would define her rule, the Festival of Unity, a tradition meant to solidify alliances and display power. Adui's daughters tried to undermine her, spreading rumors that Adawuni was inexperienced, that her decisions would ruin the kingdom. On the day of the festival, the city square brimmed with spectators. Traders, villagers, and nobles gathered, buzzing with anticipation. Adawuni appeared not in silk or gold, but in simple, dignified robes. Her poise spoke louder than words. She addressed the crowd. Leadership is not inherited, it is earned. Today, we unite not for glory, but for the well-being of all. Her speech was met with silence, then applause, then jubilation. Even the daughters were silenced, realizing that the kingdom was already choosing a new heart to follow. Yet the palace was not done testing her. Shadowed corridors, secret traps, and old grudges remained. Each day brought new challenges, corrupt ministers, dangerous alliances, and whispers of rebellion. Adawuni faced each with courage, intelligence, and empathy. Her leadership style, firm but fair, began transforming Azura from a land of fear into one of hope. Amidst the tension, one unexpected ally emerged, Prince Adanju of Ola, a visiting envoy whose calm demeanor and respect for justice mirrored her own. Their conversations, though formal at first, grew into collaboration, and then a bond deeper than politics. Together, they navigated treacherous waters, united by vision and gradually by mutual admiration. Sometimes the heart must rule alongside the crown, Adawuni thought, feeling the first stirrings of love that would eventually shape not just her reign, but the future of two kingdoms. The palace was still a place of challenges, but now it had a queen whose courage, intellect, and heart were undeniable. Adawuni had survived the forest, conquered the trials, and now faced the ultimate test, transforming power into justice and chaos into what happens when a lost princess returns to claim her destiny. Will she bring justice or revenge? Months passed, and Adawuni's influence in Azura grew stronger. Her leadership was no longer a matter of rumor, it was reality. Villages once neglected flourished under her guidance. Markets thrived. The people spoke her name with reverence, and even those who doubted her could not ignore the change she had brought. Yet the palace remained a battlefield. Adui's daughters, still bitter from their failures, plotted with desperation. They whispered to foreign allies, sought dark magic, and tried to undermine the queen's every move. But each scheme crumbled, either through Adawuni's wisdom or the loyalty of those who had seen her courage in the royal games. Amidst this turmoil, Prince Adanju of Ola arrived for a diplomatic visit. His eyes, steady and calm, always found hers. Unlike others, he spoke with honesty, listened with intent, and acted with integrity. Slowly, collaboration turned into trust, and trust blossomed into something deeper, a quiet, undeniable affection. Love is not a distraction, Adawuni reminded herself, it is a partner in purpose. The moment of reckoning came when Adui, growing frail and paranoid, attempted one final move to regain control. He summoned the royal council and declared that the throne should pass to one of his daughters. The city held its breath. Would chaos return? Adawuni stepped forward, calm, resolute, her presence commanding the room. The throne belongs not to those who cling to birthright, but to those who serve with wisdom, courage, and heart. Let the people decide as they have already chosen. The elders, remembering the trials, the games, and her deeds, rose in agreement. The people's voices echoed in support. Adui's daughters could only stand in disbelief. Their father's last attempt had failed, and the kingdom embraced a queen worthy of legend. The final test was not of war, but of unity. Adawuni extended her hand to Prince Adanju, joining Azura and Ola not through conquest, but through mutual respect and alliance. Together, they rebuilt trade, strengthened defenses, and nurtured arts and education. Peace reigned where once there was fear. Her coronation was simple yet profound. Under the ancient baobab tree, amidst the cheers of her people, Adawuni accepted the crown. She thought of the pit in the forest where she had almost perished, of the trials that shaped her, and of the trust placed in her by those who believed in her heart. This crown is not just a symbol of power, she whispered, but of responsibility, courage, and hope. As years passed, Queen Adawuni ruled with grace. Her legacy spread across Azura and beyond. Stories of her wisdom, bravery, and compassion were sung by bards, carved in schools, and painted on market walls. Even Adui's daughters, once rivals, became governors, guided by her example. The kingdom thrived, villages prospered, trade flourished, art and knowledge spread. And in quiet moments, Adawuni would walk the forest paths of her childhood, remembering the whispers of the trees that once guided her, the cries that once saved her, and the destiny that had always been hers. And in her final words to the next generation, she said, "Lead not for the crown, but for the people. Listen, act with courage, and never forget who you are. The crown will find you as it found me." The lost princess of Azura had returned, not just as a queen, but as a legend. Her story thundered through history, a beacon of hope, justice, and the power of destiny fulfilled.